The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Knopsynder. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, joined as always by my co-host, Eric Knopsynder. Eric, it's one of the biggest weeks of the wrestling year, and it is in July.
Yeah, this is one that we mark on the calendar right away and kind of look forward to it. As soon as the folk style season ends, this is what we start looking forward to, is Fargo.
Yes, and I know you're excited to get out there to Fargo. Unfortunately for me, I will be staying home. Other obligations come first in terms of that. That involves a marriage and things of that nature. So, unfortunately, you're going to be going solo. But I have full faith in you to do a good job out in Fargo.
Yeah, honestly, it's a pretty daunting task. You and I were both there last year and, struggled I think we did a great job out there, but, you struggle to keep up with everything because you want to see every Pennsylvania guy on the mat and girl. And, it's just not possible because there's so much going on.
Yeah, at times it was a little overwhelming from a coverage standpoint, just because you have, especially when you have that overlap between cadets and juniors, you have so many Pennsylvania wrestlers on the mat at the same time, and not to mention just really good wrestling all over. Not even Pennsylvania wrestlers, just in general. So it's much like the Super 32 is, except it's a little bit longer. It's more of a week instead of 2 days, and it's a lot of fun. I'm actually really disappointed I won't be there this year, especially with the teams we have going out from Pennsylvania, because I think really, you look at the squads that we have in cadets and juniors, and there's some massive heavy hitters coming out there, and really a lot of depth. And I think when we talked to Coach Pearsall, who's one of the coaches on Team Pennsylvania, specifically the cadet team, talking about the depth that Pennsylvania has in 2018, I think that's what's going to set them apart from years prior. Based on just looking at them on paper, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there's certainly a ton of depth there. Some of that aided by the fact that we've got a few guys who aren't really Pennsylvanians by this strictest standard, but are now wrestling for Pennsylvania schools, and so are going to be representing the Keystone State out there, and some real studs that fall into that category. So that definitely helps Pennsylvania's chances as far as bringing home some hardware.
And you look at, and we will provide a list of all the wrestlers that are going out to Fargo. But if you look at the names and you look at some of the credentials that they have in terms of state championships, national prep championships, previous Fargo accomplishments, in addition to just rankings nationally. I'm looking at the list here of all the nationally ranked wrestlers that are going to be out there just from Pennsylvania, and there's at least 4 in the top 2 in the nation, all from Pennsylvania. So that's, like you said, it's just so much talent there. I'm really hoping to see some big things out of Pennsylvania from Fargo.
Yeah, and I think that we will see some big things out of Pennsylvania at Fargo. As you said, there are a ton of guys that have already been an All-American, a national champion at Fargo. So they're leading the way. And then, as we talked about, that depth down below it are the guys that can still get on the podium and really make a difference in the team standings.
So let's take a look at the cadet freestyle roster first for Pennsylvania. And again, for cadets, the lowest weight here is 88 pounds. But you look at some of the names on the list here, some of the ones that jump out to me, you got Carter Starocci from Franklin Regional. He's at 100 pounds. And this is a guy who was undersized. Most of his freshman year was a state qualifier. He actually had a win over state champion Alejandro Herrera-Rondon, but he was only a state qualifier. He's there. Rocco Welsh from Waynesburg Central lot of big things coming out of Waynesburg Central, their youth program. Rocco Welsh is sort of one of their key guys coming up through the ranks. He'll be a freshman next year. A lot of PJW hardware to his name, so I'm curious to see how he does. But you also, as I mentioned earlier, with Alejandro Herrera-Rondon, or AHR as we like to call him here on PA Power Podcast, he's coming in ranked number 2 in the nation at 106 pounds by Flow. Flow updated their rankings prior to Fargo, and AHR comes in number 2 in the nation, and he'll be competing in Fargo at 106 pounds. He's got a lot of experience in freestyle and Greco in the youth ranks, but this is the first time he's going out for the cadet team, so I'm really excited to see how he does, especially after watching him win a state championship his freshman year, having a sort of up and down postseason, coming close to beating Curtis Phipps and then finally getting over the hump in the state finals. So, Herrera-Rondon could really make some noise, and if he really wants to propel himself on the national scene, Fargo's the place to do it.
That's exactly right. And one of his teammates that'll be in the same weight class there at 106 is Sheldon Seymour, who was an All-American last year at Fargo and returns this year. So, some really talented lightweights for the PA team.
Yeah, and Seymour's another guy who is undersized for most of his career. He was actually at 94 pounds last year in Fargo, where he was a double All-American. He finished third in both freestyle and Greco. And Sheldon Seymour this year moves up to 106. So you're right. I think him and Herrera-Rondon are definitely capable of finishing in the top 8 here. And Seymour, obviously, having had medals here from last year, I think he's got to be poised to improve on that. So we could see Seymour do some big things. He was on the Pan American team for Team USA. So he's done a lot of off-season freestyle and Greco wrestling. So this is a kid who just does not stop wrestling. He's always competing. And I think that's going to show this week up in Fargo.
Then you move up to 113, and you got some great names too there.
Yeah, Gary Steen was a state champion last year, his freshman campaign at Reynolds. He's a guy who's done a lot of freestyle as well in the youth ranks, and he comes in ranked number 14 in the nation at 106 pounds. But he'll be competing up at 113 pounds in Fargo. Curtis Phipps, as you mentioned, he was a state runner-up last year, fell in the finals to Alejandro Herrera-Rondon. But he comes in ranked number 17th in the nation at 113 pounds. Curtis Phipps is another one. He wrestles everywhere. He's wrestled in Ohio Tournament of Champions. He's wrestled in several freestyle tournaments. I mean, he's just really been everywhere as well. So I'm curious to see how he will do out in Fargo. You also have 2 St. Joseph Catholic teammates, Lane Akey and Amon Ole, that are going to be competing as well at 113 pounds.
Yeah, and we saw Ole last year finish quite as well as he wanted to in the state tournament.
Now, one of the biggest names for the cadet team that I'm looking forward to seeing how he does is Ryan Crookham from Saucon Valley. And that's because he is such a intriguing figure here in Pennsylvania, because last year as an 8th grader, he won the Super 32 championship. So this guy is really good.
Yeah, he's legit. Yeah, we got to see. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do here again on the national stage.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than Super 32 other than Fargo, right? And to see him compete in freestyle is something that I'm really looking forward to see. And we've seen this before in the past. Look at Trent Hidley, Sammy Sasso, Jake Woodley. Some of the biggest names in Pennsylvania wrestling are out in Fargo competing well in freestyle. So it's no secret that success in freestyle normally comes around with success in folk style. So Ryan Crookham, and this is a guy who also I'm not 100% positive where he's going to be going to school next year. I don't know if that's been officially decided or not, but this is a guy who, wherever he ends up next year, is a force to reckon with. Whether that's national prep, whether that's PIAA, AAA, AA, it doesn't matter. Wherever he goes, he's going to be a force to reckon with. And you look at other guys here at 120. Brock McMillan from Glendale. He was a state runner-up last year as a freshman. Eric, I know you've got to see him wrestle quite often, and I'm really excited to see how he does. We saw him last year in Fargo, do pretty well, fall short of All-American, but still very impressed with him.
I'm interested to see him, as you said. Should be a great representative out there. I think he's going to probably him out there. And then Matt Sarbo from Altoona, another quality 120-pounder.
Yeah, and you look at the national rankings, Ryan Crookham comes in ranked number 5 in the nation at 120 pounds. So that's pretty impressive for a guy who hasn't even wrestled a high school match yet. You know, that's very Spencer Lee-like. You look at 126 pounds. Some other names that you're going to see here, there's a lot of similar schools here, right? There's a lot of schools that have multiple wrestlers going out to Fargo, but one is Zach Whitmer from St. Joseph's Catholic. This is a guy who we sort of previewed before Fargo last year when he was just entering his 9th grade, but he sort of headlines the group for me here at 126 pounds, but also Wyatt Henson, a guy who wrestled at Waynesburg Central last year as a freshman. He was a state medalist last year. I'm curious to see how he does out in Fargo.
Both of these guys, state medalists as freshmen last year, so kind of a difficult task of them just because there's so much at 126. So, you're going to run into, as you do at a lot of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, when you look at the depth, I mean, go back at Jason Bryant's Fargo Almanac, and you look at the top 8 finishers in some weight classes, and some of them are all NCAA All-Americans. I mean, it's just it's incredible the amount of talent, especially in a weight like 126 cadets.
Yeah, this should be one of the fun ones.
You look at 132 pounds, only 2 wrestlers from Pennsylvania, Caden Berger from Reynolds and Rafael Pertilla from Carlisle, a guy who I've seen a lot over the last couple years. I think he's been improving his skill set as he's grown, and I'm curious to see how he will do out in Fargo. 138 pounds, another really, really deep weight here in terms of the nation. But you look at Pennsylvania, Jagger Condomiti from Northampton area. He's a guy who I've been high on for the last couple of years. Really is another one who just kind of doesn't stop wrestling. He's always competing in a new tournament. I'm really interested to see how he'll do, especially on this big stage. We saw his teammate Michael Kistler from Northampton do big things here last year. Michael Kistler, for note, he's a returning All-American, but will not be competing this year in Fargo. There's a few of them, Eric. But I'm really excited to see Condomiti out here.
I am as well. He's a guy that, as you said, seems to be in everything.
And you look at 145 pounds, the biggest name has to be Carson Manville. And yes, I know people are going to give us grief over this. Considering Carson Manville, this is his first year ever wrestling on a Team PA roster. Last year, he was a double cadet champion. He won both freestyle and Greco championships out in Fargo. And Eric, we got to see him there. He was representing Team Minnesota. I mean, he was so much fun to watch. And this is what I'm talking about. All the wrestling that you see, there's just so much talent there outside of Pennsylvania that is just fun to watch. And Carson Manville is one of them. And it just so happens he's going to be competing on Team PA. So I'm not going to say no to having Carson Manville on the team, right? He goes to Wyoming Seminary, right? So he has some connections there. I know, yes, he's from Virginia. He's wrestled in Minnesota. Same with his brother Mason and Pearson. They've kind of wrestled a lot of different places. But hey, look, we gave Francis Dugan to Iowa last year, right? We'll take Carson Manville at least for 2018 because he's going to be one of the top wrestlers in the tournament, let alone Pennsylvania. He's going to be one of the top wrestlers in Fargo, period. You got to like his chances of repeating here. He's ranked number 1 in the nation by flow at 145 pounds, only a sophomore in high school. He's a lot of fun to watch. You got to expect him to come away with another championship here.
Yeah, I think, not to put any more pressure on him that he has under his belt already, to not see him win a couple titles would be
right. And, in addition to him, there's a few other ones that we're going to talk about when we get to juniors about transplants for Pennsylvania. But as you mentioned, Carson Manville, definitely the favorite to win here at 145 pounds. You move up to 152 pounds. Another St. Joe's Catholic guy here, Keegan Rothrock, I think there's probably 6. I think there's 6 or 7 total St. Joseph Catholics. So you got almost, about that. In fact, and one of them isn't going to be there, but he was on the roster, Malky Duvall. But you look at Keegan Rothrock, another guy, sort of a journeyman, wrestled a lot of different places. And here's the thing, Eric. A lot of these guys, you may not be completely familiar with their names right now, but there's going to be guys that are going to surprise you, sort of like Gabe Miller did last year from Peckaway Valley. A lot of people were surprised by the way he wrestled last year, or Michael Kistler from Northampton, or Marquise Branford from Wilson. Those guys that, hadn't really had even state medals to their name other than Gabe Miller, but you look at some of the guys here, like Keegan Rothrock. I mean, he's a guy I wouldn't be surprised if he snuck in and finished top 8, because you just don't know, especially in cadets.
There are so many steps that guys can take, whether it's didn't expect him to All-American, and he does.
Yeah, right. I agree with you. So you look at 160 pounds, Clayton Ulrey from Lower Dolphin. Really, really like the way Clayton wrestles. I've got to see him throughout his youth and his high school career. He was a state medalist last year for Lower Dolphin. He's going to compete in at 160 pounds, and he's probably going to be sporting a mullet. So that's always a plus. All right, you can't go wrong with a mullet. Now, correct me, I could be wrong, but last time I saw him, he had a mullet. So the mullet would be strong in Fargo, I think. You also have Isaiah Reinhardt from Easton, another young kid. He was a freshman last year. Did really well for Easton in his first year there. So, again, some of these guys, we're going to sneak a few of them on the podium. And I have a feeling between 152 and kind of 182, I think we're going to see a few slip onto the podium.
And honestly, I think that's where they need to maybe for the team title.
You look at 170 pounds, Matthew Romanelli from Downtown East, another guy who's young but has done well in his career. Luke Stout from Mount Lebanon. I mean, that's a big name guy. He's a 2-time state qualifier. He was a state medalist last year, and Luke, I think, is a guy who's sort of still living, I guess, in his brother's shadow a little bit with Kellen, but Luke has only gotten bigger and better in the last 2 years of high school wrestling, so now he's going to have a chance to really display that talent out in Fargo in sort of an area that I don't think he's done a ton of freestyle wrestling, but he's going to have a chance to do that here.
Yeah, that'll be one that'll be interesting to see how his game translates to freestyle, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Another Downingtown wrestler at 182 pounds, Downtown West to be exact, Chase Melenik from Downtown West. He's going to be competing out there. Another guy who's sort of done well for a young age up at a higher weight. You got Elliott Park from Brookville area. He's going to be competing at 182 pounds as well. You look at 195 pounds. This is where I think it gets a little interesting because you got 2 really young guys who I think can really make some noise. Dorian Crosby from Cathedral Prep and Colby Franklin. Colby Franklin is from Du Bois. I believe he's going to be going to St. Joseph Catholic next year. He was an 8th grader last year, multiple-time PJW state champion. Has really competed well throughout his youth career, and I think he's going to have a chance to propel himself in Fargo. But Dorian Crosby and Colby Franklin are 2 guys that I think Pennsylvania are going to look to get on the medal stand here at 195.
Yeah, we're completely on the same page here, Jeff.
Yeah, I think for once we are on the same page here, Eric. So that's good. The stars must be aligned. Moving up to 220 pounds, Eric, and one of the biggest names, and we talked about a guy like Carson Manville, but Hunter Katka from Sun Valley is a guy who's one of the biggest names in not only Pennsylvania but the nation right now. He was a sophomore last year where he was a state champion for Sun Valley, and a guy who we saw here last year in Fargo do pretty well for himself. Mm-hmm. You saw him compete in both Greco and Freestyle, where he was a double All-American. He finished 7th in Greco and 6th in Freestyle last year. He's returning to 220 pounds, where he's now sort of the big dog, I guess you could say. A lot of his competition moved up to juniors, so now Hunter's sort of the lone guy here, and Hunter comes in ranked very high in the nation. You look at Flo's updated rankings, he's number 2 in the nation at 220 pounds. That's not sophomores, that's all classes. So you got to think he's a favorite here to get a championship at 220 pounds.
he is just a big dude.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I believe his family has a gym. I think it's called Lab Training, and I think he was developed in a lab, or at least he at least spent a lot of time in a gym because he's absolutely huge, as you said. So, I think Hunter Kack is a guy who we're going to see do really big things in Fargo this year, just like he did last year when he was a double All-American. You look some young guys up at 285 pounds, Jalen Stevens from Myersdale, but also your boy Colby Whitehill from Brookville. Colby Whitehill was a double All-American last year out in Fargo. He was 7th in freestyle and 7th in Greco. You got to think he's going to improve upon that finish.
Last year by Colby, really wrestled well in some matches. And Stevens from Myersdale, I'm interested to see him. He got hurt in the postseason as a freshman last January and missed the whole postseason.
Yeah, and he's a guy who we talked about a lot earlier in the year before he got injured, but his ceiling's really high. He's got a lot of potential. And I just don't think we were able to see that last year because of the injury, right? So I think that he's a little bit underrated still because he hasn't been on that regional or state level. But we're going to be able to see him out in Fargo. We're also going to be able to see him out in the Surge because he's one of our participants for the Surge. He's among many others that have already committed to wrestling in the Surge November 3rd and 4th at University of Pittsburgh, Johnstown. So I'm excited. We're going to see him in Fargo. I'm excited to see how he does here, and I'm also excited to see how he does out in November. So that's going to really do it for cadets and freestyle. And like you said earlier, I mean, there's high expectations here for Team Pennsylvania. You look at a team like Illinois. I mean, Illinois is obviously never going to not produce big results in Fargo, but you got to think Pennsylvania is going to be on their heels. I'm gonna go on a limb here, Eric, and I'm going to say we have at least 2 champions, Katka and Manville, with definitely some outside chances from some of our other folks here. I think Sheldon Seymour and Alejandro Herrera-Rondon are also in the mix. Curtis Phipps. I think these guys are all potentials to at least get on top 8. So I think we're going to have 2 champions. I could see upwards of 12. I'm looking at this and I see 12 to 14 wrestlers to finish the top 8. That's what I'm looking at. So let's switch gears to the junior freestyle team and for Pennsylvania. And quite honestly, Eric, if you thought we were excited about cadets, I'm a little bit more excited about juniors considering the star power we have here. Let's kick it off right away. 100 pounds, Joey Fisher from South Park. This is a guy who's done really well in the offseason wrestling in freestyle and Greco. He was a state qualifier last year, another undersized freshman last year, but he still made it to the state tournament where he had some impressive wins, just didn't end up on the podium. But he's a guy who's coming in at 100 pounds in the junior division. I think he's going to find some success here in Fargo.
You're right. He's definitely been seeming to come on, kind of grow into that weight a little more.
You look at another guy moving up to 113 pounds, Chris Kim from Germantown Academy. He's a guy who last year came on really, really strong in Fargo, but was unable to get on the podium in freestyle. In Greco, he was 7th in the nation out in Fargo. So Chris Kim's no stranger to Fargo. He's moving up to juniors this year. I think he has a shot to do big things, but also Ryan Miller. He's from Blair Academy. He's originally from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, still calls Pennsylvania home. You look at him, last year he was 4th in freestyle at 106 pounds in cadets. Now he's moving up to juniors at 113 pounds. He's a guy who's been in the national ranks for a very, very long time. So I think we expect big things from him.
We do, and he kind of highlights one of the things that you'll notice as we seminary guys. I'm not sure about the final list. I know I counted 7 of them earlier. PIAA you might not see as often, but some supremely talented guys on here.
Yeah, Miller comes in ranked number 14th in the nation by flow. And as I mentioned, Chris Kim from Germantown Academy is 15th in the nation. So you got 2 guys ranked top 20 in the nation. at the same weight for the same team. So it's pretty impressive. But let's not sleep on another wrestler here who has some hardware already from juniors, not cadets, from juniors, and that's Nick Onia from Pottsville area. Nick is a guy who's built to be a wrestler. I mean, if you see him, you're like, man, that's a wrestler, right? He's kind of short, he's stocky, he's very muscular for a guy his size. And he's a guy who I've been impressed with throughout his scholastic career. But last year, he really impressed us out in Fargo as he came away with a 8th place finish in freestyle on the junior team. So now that's he's wrestling some guys that some of them are now in college. So you got to think with him coming back to 113 this year, he's got to want to improve upon that 8th place finish. At 120 pounds, Pennsylvania's got Jacob Blair from Muncie. Blair's a guy who, if you remember, he missed weight last year for the postseason, so he was not in contention at 106 pounds. He just was sucking too much weight down, and he was ranked as as high as number 1 in the state at 106 pounds. But you see him competing up 120 pounds in Fargo. Very interested to see how he does. But you look at 126, and we talked about depth in the cadets. 126 in juniors is loaded, both nationally and Pennsylvania. 126, you have Drew Munch from Wyoming Seminary, a guy who was a national prep champion 2 years ago, but didn't make the lineup last year. And then you have Chase Shields from Bish McDevitt. He's only a 2-time state runner-up from McDevitt. Then you got Doug Zapf from Downtown West. Another not a lot of accomplishments here. He's only a state champion in 2017, a state runner-up in 2018. He's going to University of Penn next year, and he's going to be competing here. You also got Marquise Branford from Wilson area, another guy who was a cadet All-American last year in Fargo. So you have some guys here that are just like ridiculously talented, all clumped up together at the same weight in the same team.
And Henson as well. So just a really deep weight, as you said. Are 3 stop signs. I mean, it's a weight class that nationally, so those are far from guarantees.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at that, and I know you're saying 3. I think we're more realistically going to get 1 or 2 here, and I think Doug Zapf's got to be a guy who's going to be competing for a stop sign. Chase Shields is, while he's very, very tough, hasn't done a ton of freestyle and first time out to Fargo, so you never know how they're going to react to that stage. Marquise Branford, though, a guy who's been there before, as you mentioned, has done well at Fargo, although it was in cadets. But Doug Zapf, you got to like him, and you like his chances of doing well. And we're actually going to have a chance to talk with Doug here in a little bit. So, yeah, 126, it doesn't get much better than that. But if it is, you're going to want to be 132, because 132, you got some big-name guys as well. Starting out with national prep champion, 2-time national prep champion, Bo Bartlett from SEM. And Bo's just, I mean, what's there to say about Bo? He's the number 1 wrestler in the nation. He's ranked number 1 in the nation at 126, although he'll be competing at 132. He's the guy that dethroned Gavin Teasdale, gave him his first career loss. He won the Powerade Championship. Just a phenomenal kid and wrestler. Really nice kid, just very well spoken for a guy his age. And everywhere he goes, he finds success. So why would Fargo be any different? Yeah,
you've got him. So certainly a guy that we're Josh Jones, another guy who has been there before and really shown what he can do on that stage.
Yeah, Josh Jones comes in ranked number 20th in the nation at 132 pounds. And as you mentioned, Josh Jones is a guy who last year was 5th in Greco at 126 pounds in cadets. But again, even looking at 132, we also have a guy named Colton Camacho from Franklin Regional, a guy who was a state runner-up last year. And I don't know if you remember him last year in Fargo, Eric, but he impressed me. He's a guy who tech followed Ed Scott in the state finals of PAWF last year. Really looked sharp last year in Fargo. Ran into some tough competition, though. I like the way the 132 is shaping out. And then throw in Cade Balestrini from Shikellamy. a really, really gritty, stingy wrestler, just really hard-nosed wrestler. I like the way he wrestles. He'll be in there as well. So you look at the other, teams and the rosters, I think we would be foolish to say that Pennsylvania couldn't come away with at least one, possibly two stop signs here, with Bo Bartlett, Josh Jones, Camacho sort of leading that charge.
Yeah, and I think you move up to 138, and you was a cadet All-American not last year, but the year before. You got Ed Scott, weight class for Pennsylvania at 138.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Madeira, Joe Clock, Ed Scott, all huge names. But then let's throw in Moshe Schwartz from Wyoming Seminary. Now,
he's not a bad guy to add in there.
Huh? I think he was a double cadet champion in 2016 when he was competing for Colorado. So yes, he's another one that Pennsylvania sort of cherry picked a little bit, maybe a lot of it. But
he's been on world teams. I mean, this teams, and you're really doing something,
right? And I will claim him for Fargo. That if that's not a big deal. If we have to take him off Colorado's hands, we'll take him. But I won't. I mean, I won't sit here and say he's a Pennsylvania wrestler through and through. I mean, that'd be foolish of me to say. But he's obviously competing for Team PA. He competes at Wyoming Seminary. And he's looking to make an impact here in Fargo, where he's had success before. So I would say that the chances are he's probably going to do that again this year. So I really like the way he's looked. He comes in ranked. I believe he's number 8 in the nation at 138 pounds. So just another guy who's fits in well at that weight class. 132 pounds also features a guy from Timberland, New Hampshire, Connor McGonigal, who is going to Lehigh. So he's a guy who I think Pennsylvania wrestlers aren't going to be completely familiar with, but he's a really talented wrestler from the New England area. Yeah, if you look at that and you think those are all at 32, Bartlett, Jones, Schwartz, McGonigal, Camacho, Balestrini, that's really, really insane. So I know that wasn't the most articulate response, but that's really, really impressive. But 38 again, as we mentioned, Mike Madeira, Joe Clock, Ed Scott. Joe Clock is a guy who was a state champion last year. Mike Madeira, multiple-time national prep medalist. Ed Scott, he was a state medalist 2 years ago. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how 32 and 38 shake out. You look at 145 pounds, another Wyoming Seminary stud, and that's Connor Kievman, a guy who, much like most of the wrestlers we see from Wyoming Seminary, they have to wait their turn to get into the lineup, right? And Connor Kievman, it was his first time in the lineup last year, and all he does is win a national prep championship, So there's just so much depth at 100, at that weight class in your lineup, in just Wyoming Seminary's team. So you have to really fight for just a spot on the team. But he'll be competing out in Fargo at 145, as well as Gabe Miller from Pequay Valley, a guy who really burst onto the scene last year in Fargo. I know he had a lot of people asking us, who is this Gabe Miller kid from Pequay Valley? And he finished 6th in freestyle last year, 6th in juniors. That's really impressive.
Yeah, it was. I definitely think that was an eye-opener. And just getting back for a second, you were talking about the depth for Wyoming Seminary, and struggled to get into the Wyoming Seminary lineup the following year. So he's out there at 145 for us, but still some really talented guys.
Right. I mean, and Sea Turtle, as we like to call him here on the show, he really impressed us last year in Fargo. And as you mentioned, Eric, he's a guy who hasn't wrestled in one single postseason. I mean, because he hasn't been in the postseason yet. Because he's behind guys like Jack Davis, Bo Bartlett. So it's unfortunate, but he's very, very talented. So I expect him to do well at 145 pounds, as well as Gabe Miller and Connor Kievman. You look at 152 pounds. Kobe Ho from Du Bois, a guy who's going to George Mason University. So shout out to Mason Beckman. Miss you. So you look at 152 for Team PA. Not as much depth here as we've seen in 32 and 38, but still a guy like Kobe Ho, Chase McCullum from the Haverford School is a guy who is national prep medalist. So I think, again, we're going to see some guys that surprise us coming up through. But you also look at a guy like Dan Mancini from Owen J. Roberts. He'll be competing at 152 pounds as well. Anthony Robinson, and as I mentioned, Chase McCullum. So definitely some talent there. And Kobe Ho, it would be sort of the cherry on top if he could just come out and do well here in Fargo. You look at 170. There's a guy here, I recognize his name. I'm not sure what he's done before, but his name's Carter Starocci. Is that what it is? Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Starocci.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So Carter, I love Carter. I've seen Carter wrestle since he was a youth. Just a really great human being. He's a good person. Very, very well spoken. It's been a pleasure to sort of cover him the last few years, and we got a chance to really watch him burst out last year in Fargo. But he's going to have some tough competition this year. He's moving up. Last year, he won a cadet national championship in freestyle at 152 pounds. This year, he's competing at 170 pounds in juniors. And we're going to have a chance to talk to him in a little bit here. But Carter's going to have his hands full with some guys that are really highly ranked. Carter comes in ranked number 3 in the nation by Flow. But the number 1 kid at that weight, Dustin Plott from Oklahoma, is going to be there.
The other guys in the top 10, I think, that are going to be there?
Yeah, Alex Kramer from Illinois. He's number 10. You got another guy from Ohio. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name. He's number 6, Carson Kanarcha. I did try to pronounce his name. I'm not going to try to pronounce the guy's name from Wisconsin. Parker. He's number 7th in the nation. So what you got here? Kekheisen? Yeah, that sort of sounds like one of your relatives. Yeah, one of your relatives. Knopsynder and Kekheisen. Yeah, it's kind of scary. So you got Carter 3, Dustin 1, Alex 10, Carson 6, Parker 7. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys all ranked in the top 5 in the nation competing in Fargo. Yikes. Carter, yeah, I'm really excited to talk to him. So we'll have a chance to talk to him here in a second. Also here, Angel Garcia, guy who was a Fargo All-American last year in Greco-Roman. You look at 182 pounds, guys like Ben Root from Solanco, who in 2016 was a Fargo All-American. Jack Wimmer, a Chambersburg native who's at the McDonough School. He's going to be competing at 182. Also, 195, some impressive names here. Julian Goring from Fort LaBeouf also was a 2016 cadet Greco All-American. Michael Doggett from where else but Wyoming Seminary. Greg Bensley from Pocono Mountain West. He's a guy who really doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. It's probably because he wrestles for Pocono Mountain West, but he's really a tough wrestler. Has done well in the state tournaments. And you look at 95. There's a guy here who's sneaking on here, and he just made his college commitment live on the PA Power podcast. But that's Cole Urbis, Eric, and he's about 6'4", you said.
And a really good kid, too. I really enjoyed that interview. Had a lot of fun with Cole. He's got that college commitment process out of the way.
And you look at some of the other names in the upper white, Bruce Vaughn from Wilson, Nick Natoli from Bangor area, 220. But 285, Jacob Edwards from Central Mountain. He impressed me last year at the King of Mountain tournament. And Nathan Hoagland from Mount Lebanon, a guy who kind of came out of nowhere, surprised a lot of folks out in District 7, but Nathan Hoagland was a guy who did well last year. So that's our junior freestyle team, and we mentioned some heavy hitters here. I mean, I'm expecting at least, I got to go at least one championship, because Carter's going to have his hands full. Carter. That's not a
as a lock to win a title. I mean that.
I think Bo Bartlett at 32's got to be a guy you're looking to see in the finals. Doug Zapf is a guy who is determined, and we're going to talk to him in a little bit here, but he's focused. Dougie's definitely focused. But I think if we don't have a ton of champions here, we're going to have a ton of medalists. I think we could see upwards of 16 guys on the podium is what I'm looking at. You look at all the names here that are ranked in the nation. it's hard for me to think that you're not going to, like, Cole Arbris, number 4 in the nation at 195. Julian Gorey, number 15 at 195. Ed Scott, 20 at 138. Camacho, 14 at 38. These are guys that are highly talented and highly regarded wrestlers in the nation. So why not?
I hope I'm wrong here, but I'm not as confident as you are here, Jeff.
How many will you say, Eric? You can't say less than 12. I mean, my opinion. Like, you'd be doing a disservice to your country and your state. I'm just saying. Come on, Eric.
Now that you've attacked my patriotism, I hope it is. I mean, just after last, I'm honestly thinking 10. But you're right. There is a lot of depth. But I don't know what to expect out of Moshe Schwartz. I mean, I know he was great before, but to drop off a little bit. So I'm not sure that he's going to be there. Bartlett, I agree. That's back. But I'm not sure that I can say 12 or 16.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'm just being optimistic. I'm a glass half full guy, and I'm normally not. I'm normally sort of the like the Pirates. Watching the Pirates, I'm like, they're terrible. They're god awful. They shouldn't even show up. Yeah, you're right. I guess I am. You're right. So let's switch gears over to women, and there's a lot of talented Pennsylvania wrestlers from the women's division that are going to be competing. Ava Bayless, she's a Reynolds. She's the sister of Bo Bayless. She's going to be competing at 100 pounds out in Fargo. Montana Delwinder as well, Tatiana Ortiz. There's a lot of Madison Mata. There's a lot of tough wrestlers here that are going to be competing. Can I
get my favorite name in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jazzy Toll.
That is a pretty sweet name. Yeah. If I'm wrestling Jazzy Toll, I'm scared. You look at the juniors. I mean, you got some huge names here. You got the Walker sisters, who I swear are 20 years old, but because they've been wrestling juniors since they were 8. Caitlin Walker, Val Baker, and Amanda Walker, all three of them competed for Wyman Seminary last year. And Jillian Bruno, a girl who we saw last year, really impressed me last year, winning a stop sign in Fargo. So we have a chance to do really well in women's. The depth is just not there. You look at Texas, Hawaii and California and Illinois, all those, kind of big name women's wrestling states just are too much for Pennsylvania depth wise. But we could definitely get a few ladies coming back with the hardware. We got a chance to talk to Adeline Gray at Final X, and she said you guys are really fortunate to have the folks that you do here in Pennsylvania. But I agree, Eric. It's got to take more than that. It's got to get the PIAA. It's got to get behind it, because that's the only thing that's really going to have any momentum changing it. So, but overall, Eric, super excited about Fargo. Very upset I won't be there, but I will be following along and helping you while you're out there from afar. I'm only getting married once in my life, Eric. So this is.
And just to be clear, it's not this weekend. He's got some things to take care of, some. And I support. Go get your flowers, do your thing. I'll be watching wrestling for 4 days straight.
Don't belittle me, Eric. Don't belittle me. Well, before we sign off, we got some interviews with some really talented wrestlers who we just talked about. Carter Starocci, Dougie Zapf, C. Tuttle. I want that to stick. I want C. Tuttle to stick. We're also going to talk to Coach Bryan Pearsall. So really looking forward to speaking with them and hearing their thoughts on Fargo. And joining us now is Carter Starocci, and it's hard to believe, Carter, a year ago you came away from Fargo with a lot of hardware, and now a year later, here you are going back this year at the junior level. Talk about what the mindset's been like for you, having been out there before and found success. It's almost like a coming home story for you.
Yeah, it's always the same mindset, like even last year at Fargo or just any other tournament. It's always the same mindset, nothing different depending on the tournament. Just go out there and always score points and just wrestle your best. So I really don't have a different mindset or anything like that. Just go after it like I usually do.
Yeah, do you have more confidence, though, obviously, going into Fargo this year, having gone out there last year and doing what you did?
I'd say last year, it definitely helped, going into this year. But I don't know, I just like I said, every tournament, just keep the same confidence, just wrestle and just score points. So it's kind of the same confidence, I guess.
And you sort of kept that rolling through after Fargo. You came into your junior year and you won a state championship. You won the Powerade tournament. You won a lot of big-time matches. But you also were banged up a little bit. You were banged up in the state tournament. Talk about that. How do you feel health-wise? Do you feel ready to go? Or are you still nursing any injuries?
Well, last year at States, I was pretty banged up. I had 2 torn knees, and I wore a brace on the one and let the other one fly. But I recovered from those, so I'm ready to go now. Feeling good and just ready to get out there and wrestle.
And talk about the Cadet World Team Trials. You wrestled there. You had a really tough bracket, some pretty big names, Kennedy being one of them from Minnesota. And talk about that experience for you going out to Akron and finishing third in a pretty deep weight class in the cadets.
Yeah, that was a fun tournament. I always look forward to the competition, and I couldn't wait to get out there and wrestle the best guy. So, that was fun for me, but taking third wasn't satisfying at all. I feel I was the best man, but I didn't get it done. So I just gotta learn from that and come back stronger. But I don't know. I feel I wrestled all right. Not good. I obviously didn't win it, so just gotta keep growing, getting better.
Carter, do you have a preference in style? What do you like best?
In wrestling?
Yeah, folk style, freestyle, Greco.
Yeah, I don't like Greco. I just do it. I don't like it, but. Folk style is fun, but it kind of gets boring because people stall and stuff, and top and bottom people just lay there. So I used to like folk style better, but now I like freestyle because they make you wrestle and it's actually wrestling. There's no stalling or anything, so I like freestyle better.
And Carter, talking about the Fargo, obviously, and Eric, you had mentioned this with having that confidence. What's the different mindset now going up to juniors? Because now you're going to run into guys that possibly already graduated high school. You're going to wrestle some. You're sort of the younger one in the junior division. Have you looked at that at all and looked at some of the competition?
No, I haven't. It's honestly the same mindset of coming from the cadets to junior. It's always just go out there and wrestle, and they'll be older, but it's all the same guys that are in high school. You know what I mean? The folk style season, it's not by age group. It's 4 years, so it's the same thing here. So it's nothing different, nothing new that I haven't seen before. Just go out there and wrestle.
And Carter, going into your senior year, you're one of the top-ranked wrestlers in the nation. Lot of name recognition with you. What's the recruiting process been like for you? It's got to have been pretty overwhelming for you, having probably a lot of coaches on on the phone with you.
Yeah, I look at it as I just take it in and I try to enjoy the process because it only happens once, so I just take the best from it. But it does get pretty hard. Coaches are calling all the time. I don't mind that. It's just the more options I think you have, the harder it gets. You know what I mean? So you just gotta really pay attention and just feel the coach out. I want to like the coaches and make sure they have the same goals I do and good program and obviously to win.
Have you narrowed it down at all yet, or are you just still kind of keeping all options open?
I've narrowed it down a little bit, but not much. I'm gonna focus on that after Fargo.
Carter, best of luck to you out in Fargo. We're looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully bring back 2 more stop signs like you did last year. So best of luck for you in the next couple days.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Now we've got Carter Tuttle with us. That is C Turtle on Instagram and maybe soon on Twitter as well. But Carter, welcome in. You're headed back to Fargo after being a double All-American last year. Just tell us what the process is like, getting ready to go back and, what the confidence level is like this time around.
Getting ready to go back out to Fargo. It's just back in the similar routine, getting back into a practice room consistently, going through these camps it's a great experience. You get to go through a lot of technique. You get introduced to a lot of coaches, see many different outlooks on transitionings from takedowns into turns, whether it be a gut or a leg lace. And it's nice to get all these different views, and you're going to find something that clicks for you in this camp. And going back out to Fargo, probably one of my favorite places in the world. My coach, Scott Green, put it best in one of his tweets last year. But it's just, in the Fargo Dome, you can either not perform to your best, or you can set aside everything from the crowd to the stage to the lights and say, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to compete, I'm going to give it my best, and no one's going to prevent me from going out here and scoring, winning matches, and moving forward throughout the tournament.
I got to think wrestlers are the only people in the world who are saying that Fargo is one of their favorite places to go to.
That's just me in particular. Maybe other wrestlers feel the same way.
They do. I mean, it's such a great event. Jeff and I got to go last year for the first time, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, just so many great wrestlers and great matches and just wall-to-wall action. Just fantastic.
You're absolutely right.
And Carter, you had mentioned about having that mindset going into Fargo. I mean, last year I remember vividly, you just looked like cool as a cucumber out there wrestling in Fargo, and you really seemed to be hitting your stride. Was that just a confidence thing, just as you kept on winning, kept the momentum going?
It's just some of the things that I like to focus on when I'm going out there. I like to just empty myself of my phone and everything. I like to just focus on what I have, the task at hand. And most of the time you won't even see me have my phone on me, which is really a burden for my mother and my siblings back home, because they're always trying to reach out to me, finding out what mat I'm on. But for me, I like to just focus on going out there and competing. Every match has its new task, and you can either spend time trying to research your opponent, or you can say, I'm going to go out there and do this move, and he's not going to stop me. And maybe it was a bit of a stride, and it might have also just been confidence that I've been here before, I know how to do this, let's just keep going.
And we had talked off air about your brother. Unfortunately, he's not going to be out there this year, but he was there last year, and I'm pretty sure the entire Fargo Dome could hear him yelling. That's got to be good to have family support out there, your mother being out there, and having that. And like you said, Coach Green, having that support, it has to make you feel a little bit more at home, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Just surrounding yourself with family, whether it be biological or the wrestling family that I've come to adopt over the years, just knowing that I have these people who support me and who I support out there, it's just a wonderful feeling.
Carter, you brought up something a little bit ago. You talked about having the different coaches here and being exposed to different ways of doing moves, things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm interested, do you get to talk to them, about other things too? Whether it's weight cutting, mindset, just mental preparedness. Mm-hmm. Are you able to connect with coaches during the trip and in those other areas as well?
You can connect with quite a bit of the coaches. They're always open to talking about weight cut strategy or the mindset that you should have going out to Fargo. But it's on the individual wrestler to reach out if they're not giving a speech at the end of the practice. And it's one of those things that you need to go out there, put yourself out there on that stage in front of all these college coaches and just ask and learn, because that's what they're here to do, teach us, and we're just supposed to be students of the sport, right?
That's a great way to put it.
And Carter, speaking of being a student of the sport, it's hard to believe you're going into your senior year.
Tell me about it.
Your final season at Wyman Seminary. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I remember watching you as a youth, and this was probably before you were going to Wyman Seminary, but your brother wrestled for Carter Sport. You decided to go to Wyman Seminary. What's that experience been like? I feel like we haven't seen a lot of you because the lineup has just been so deep these last few years. What's it been like for you being in that room, and are you sort of excited to show sort of the nation what is in store for you?
Honestly, I remember when I came to SEM, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I was kind of scared getting into that room. All the big names, all the big people, being a smaller guy at the time. I'm still small, but not as small as I was. And leaving everything that I knew from my old town, as you said, my brother wrestled for Carter Sport, and leaving all that to go to Wyoming Seminary to travel with a team, go wrestle other nationally ranked prep teams. And it was both terrifying but exciting at the same time. It's something I would do again in a heartbeat if I had the opportunity. And the wrestling room is just fantastic. It's deep in every weight class, and you just go in there, and it's just a battle every day against your teammates. But the best part about it is once you leave the room, you leave everything in the room. My roommate and I, we were at the same weight for a little bit this past year, and it obviously made things a little bit difficult when we just walked back to the room. But we started to just like put it aside and find other things to talk about, other things to do, and just you started to find like clear differences from our wrestling room and just like every other aspect. And we're always just there for each other to pick each other up, keep each other moving, and iron sharpens iron. That's exactly what happens in our wrestling room.
And how do you feel like that prepares you for the next level? I mean, do you feel like just having, sort of being behind some really tough guys and having that grind every day, like you said, but also being in that, I mean, it's a college prep school. So, I mean, do you feel like you are now better prepared for that next level?
Absolutely. I am 100% like assured that I'm ready to make that jump to the next level. Scott Green and my other coaches have prepared me well, and they prepare all of us well in that room for making the jump. Wouldn't even say it's a jump, really. It's just next step, a transition. You just phase into the college life because SEM prepares you for college.
What's the recruiting process been like for you?
It's been pretty good, actually. I've been talking to a few schools here and there, and I have it narrowed down a bit, but just still open to looking around and trying to find that perfect fit.
Do you have any kind of timeline as to when you'd like to make a decision?
I honestly don't have a timeline, but some part of me just wants like next few months, or at least before the start of the next year.
And going into your senior year, obviously SEM comes back with a ton of talent. Again, what are your goals for your senior season?
My goal is just to make it onto the team and just go out and prep nationals and bring back a national title. Just start the formation, that dynasty that we have been working at SEM for all these years. And we have a great team coming in this year. We have great prospects coming up from the lightweights and the heavyweights, and just have a lot of talent in the room all across the board. It's looking to be a great year for us as a team, and individuals are going to go out there and compete, but without the wrestling room and the practice, it's just a grind every day.
Well, Carter, we look forward to seeing you out in Fargo and hopefully, again, bringing back some hardware like you did last year in both freestyle and Greco. So best of luck to you out in Fargo.
Hey, thank you.
Joining us now is Doug Zapf. And Doug, you already are done with high school. You were a state champion 2 years ago, state runner-up this last year, and you're heading back out to Fargo. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Doug, talk a little bit about your experiences with Fargo. You were there last year. Had a really deep weight class, 113 pounds. You had some really close matches. What did you take away from that experience, and what are you looking forward to going back this year?
Yeah, so last year it was probably – I went out when I was really small, so that was a good experience. But last year was when I was really serious. I trained pretty hard for it. And it was pretty tough. I got to the quarters, and then I lost the next two. I was one match short of placing, so it was a really tough to end not placing and not getting to my goal. So that's what's driven me to come back this year.
And you had talked about sort of being a little undersized, and I feel like you've been the guy who's always sort of been smaller than the rest of the competition. Do you feel now, you're wrestling 126 pounds. Last year in the state tournament, you wrestled 120 pounds. Do you feel like you're growing into yourself and feeling a little bit stronger?
Yeah, definitely. I think, definitely my freshman and sophomore year, I was always been undersized. So into my junior year and now this year, I've definitely been growing into myself, and I'm feeling stronger. Definitely been getting stronger, lifting, and I feel good.
Now, what's the motivation like to come back out to Fargo? Because, like you said, I'm always impressed with seniors who are already done with their high school careers that decide to make the grueling commitment to wrestle in Fargo again. What's that motivation for you? Like, what made you come back?
Well, at first, my plan wasn't to come to Fargo, and then I did the state tournament, and I was feeling good, and I just not placing last year is just. it was always been I never placed at Fargo. So that's what's really been driving me. So I picked that I was doing Fargo and trained pretty hard for this. But just falling short of my goal last year, that's really what's been driving me to come back.
Doug, what are you seeing here in Clarion as far as the team, and what do you see from Pennsylvania and how they're going to perform out there?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of good guys. I know definitely cadets, and they won cadet duels, but I think both teams are really well. I'm not really sure on all the kids on our team, but we have a lot of good guys, and I think we can do a lot of damage in Fargo.
And you had mentioned sort of unfinished business. What's it going to take for you to, what the grind's like now? As you said, you were in that blood round where you just finished shy. That sort of is a different factor, having fell short last year, that driving you this year. And it doesn't hurt that you have Coach Pearsall there either, a guy who you're going to be spending a ton of time with here in the future. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was really difficult, just like I'm in that quarters match and I was winning and then losing that match, and then my blood round match it wasn't overly close. It was really tough to bounce back from that. But I've been working a lot. Been going up to PRTC and Penn practices, and I've been getting a lot better. So we'll see at Fargo, but I'm confident and I'm ready to go.
And it sounds like you're excited for the next step in your career, the next chapter, so to speak, at Penn. You've been up there a lot. You got to be stoked to be going to Penn.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been there already. Like, I've been up so much. I've been with the coaches a lot, and I think it's great, and I can't wait for this next chapter to begin. And I think this is my ending chapter for high school, and then after this, it just starts college and a new grind.
Well, you've had a phenomenal high school career, as you said, state champion, state runner-up, and I think the cherry on top will be some hardware from Fargo. So
Definitely.
We wish the best of luck to you out in Fargo, and hope you come back with some hardware, and best of luck to you in the future at Penn.
Thank you very much.
Joining us now from Clarion is Bryan Pearsall. He is the assistant coach at University of Pennsylvania, and he is now helping out with the cadet team, Pennsylvania cadet team up in Clarion. And Bryan, you've been involved in Fargo for quite a long time, just as a competitor and as a coach. How excited are you to come back again this year and help out with the cadet team?
Oh, I'm really excited. So last year was my first year on staff as a coach. I had been through the PAWF system as an athlete, going to Fargo and all the duels teams as a cadet and junior. So last year coming back as a staff member, I didn't really know how it was going to go, and it's a lot different than being an athlete, that's for sure. You're wrestling a lot more matches than the guys are in the corner with them every match in the tournament. So it's busy being a coach out there. So now I kind of know what to expect. I got a year under my feet, and we got a really good team this year, so I'm really excited.
And can you talk a little bit about just Penn in general? What last year when we talked to you there, just getting your kind of feet underneath you at Penn. What's it been like now, a year later, for you being under the direction of Roger Reyna and that program? What's it been like for you? Yeah,
for sure. So last year, my start date was July 3rd, and I think I reported to camp on the 8th. So when you guys talked to me last year, I had about a week under my belt at the job, so I was fresh out. So it's been a great year. So a year ago, when Coach Reyna took over and he hired me about a month after that, we had no commitments in our 2018 class or our 2019 class. And now in about 13 months, we've had 19 commitments and a lot of really high-level guys. And we go around the country and we hear from a lot of different people like, oh, you guys have a lot of momentum right now. And, for us, we don't view it as that. We view it as a movement. This is something that we see happening. That's a change in our team culture and our program. And it's a movement. It's not something like momentum that's going to slow down anytime soon. And the reason that is we have more support around our program right now than we've ever had. Having Matt Valenti as our sports supervisor and associate athletic director, being a two-time national champ at Penn. And, financial support from donors has really picked up. We have a big announcement coming this week you guys should keep your eyes out for. Probably tomorrow, going to be dropping a big announcement. And, having Coach Slay as a executive director and head coach of the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center, having an Olympic champ who's a Penn alum back in our room, and our senior level athletes we have in there. It's just a really, really good training situation, and we've been really doing a good job with recruiting kids that want to find that balance between really high level academics and high level athletics as well.
Yeah, and in some ways, I would think, people tend to look at that as, it's got to be difficult to get kids in there. But at the same time, that's a really big recruiting tool whenever you can say, hey, look, we've got the Wharton Business School. We've got, just unbelievable academics. So does that make it easier in that regard to find, as long as you're targeting those right kids?
Yeah, we do everything through the lens of our core values. So we have 5 core values that are really important to us: character first, aiming big, humility, enjoyment, and community matters. So that's the first thing we talk about with recruits, and if they don't align with our core values, we pretty much stop the recruitment process there because it's not going to fit. So yeah, our core values are really important to us, and then being able to recruit someone that they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They want to be a part of a program that's on the rise, and do something special not only on the mat, but in the classroom as well. We're recruiting kids right now that want to be NCAA champions, NCAA All-Americans, but also academic All-Americans as well. And the phrase that we use is champion your life. That's kind of like our hashtag, or our phrase of our team, champion your life. And it's not really, really high level in one area or the other, but it's really operating at high levels in all areas of your life, and, champion the whole thing, not just one aspect of it.
And Coach, when you talk about the almost the cultural there, you bring in a guy like Pete Renda, a former Pennsylvania stud from Brandywine, and we all know what he did at NC State. How big was that, bringing in someone like him who obviously fits those core values?
Oh, it was great. Pete's an awesome guy, and he was recruited to Penn himself, so Matt Valenti recruited him, and Matt comes to me and says, yeah, this is one of my favorite kids I've ever recruited, and really upset that he didn't come to Penn. But he did great things down at NC State, and when he joined on with them, I think they were like 60-something in the country the year before. So he was part of their rise and building that team up, and he was named captain as a sophomore. So obviously had a big role in their team and their team culture of building. And that's really a consistent theme in our program is, my time at Penn State when I was there, when the coaching transition happened and we started building up and winning national championships, and Pete's experience at NC State of a program that's building. And, when Roger took over the program here at Penn, he was 24 years old, the youngest Division I head coach in any sport in the country. And, Penn was not in a great position financially or, support from the athletic department, and built them up to a top 10 program. So pretty much everyone on our staff has seen what it takes to build a winning culture.
And sort of switching gears to the Fargo team, coming back your second year as a coach, you're a couple days in. What do you like out of the cadet teams? I'm looking at the roster here, and I'm seeing a lot of big names and a lot of guys who have potential to bring home a lot of hardware. This team it's really looking good this year.
This team is really, really talented, and we do have some heavy hitters that we expect to go really deep in the tournament, but we have incredible depth as well. There's some weights where we have 3 or 4 guys that can make the podium at one weight, and we're hoping these guys don't run into each other too early in the tournament. We hope there's some kind of separation. But yeah, this is a team that is coming off winning the cadet duels in freestyle, something that hasn't been done in a while. So we have the firepower to be able to. We know we can win a national championship. We just did it at the cadet duels, and we even had some key guys that weren't out there that are going to be here on this team. So we feel we even have a more well-rounded and deeper team going out to Fargo than we had for cadet duels. So these guys know they can win it, and I think they're hungry to go prove that Pennsylvania is the best state in the country, and we haven't won Fargo in a number of years. And I think that's the goal. First thing we talk to the team is that's the goal. We're going to go win this thing, and we're setting that bar high right off the bat.
You mentioned the depth. Are there any guys out there that people might not be household names yet, but you think can really make that step up in Fargo this year?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Listen, I placed at Fargo before I placed in the Pennsylvania State Tournament. So we know it can happen. There's just every year guys come out of the woodworks that you never heard of that are going to come place at this tournament, and then they're going to be nationally ranked. I'm not going to name any names of the guys that we have on our team just because, there's so many of them. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I can guarantee you there's going to be people that, we've never heard of that are going to All-American in this tournament.
And Bryan, you had mentioned that with your experience in Fargo, and you were obviously a bigger name in freestyle and Greco before at Warwick before you made your splash, so to speak, on the high school level. Is that something you instill in these kids and say, look, this is somebody like yourself who's been through all this and really made a name for yourself out in Fargo. Is that something you sort of pass along to them?
Yeah, absolutely. And back when I was in high school, there just weren't the off-season folk style competition opportunities that there are now. So that was it. High school season ended, and right away you started wrestling freestyle. So we always try to tell the kids that we're recruiting and the kids that are coming into Penn that are seniors, like, we want you guys wrestling freestyle. It's going to help you, build a more well-rounded skill set. And, I kind of personally broke out in freestyle first, and I think it's just freestyle's fun. It's different. It just seems a little bit more relaxed. A lot of kids put a lot of pressure on themselves in folk style to, go win a state title and all that stuff. And, I think the freestyle scene is just a little bit more relaxed. People are going out and just competing hard and having fun. And it just feels a little bit different when it's freestyle season. So, yeah, I love freestyle, and I'm definitely telling all these guys, you got a really good opportunity here where you can get in front of college coaches and make a name for yourself.
And Coach, talk about the atmosphere up in Clarion. This is the second year in a row the PAWF has been at Clarion. What's the atmosphere like? I hear you're in a different facility this year. What's the vibe at like a camp this year?
Yeah, it was great. So last year we were kind of in split room. We'd have to go either split up cadets and juniors, or we'd have to split them up like lightweights and upper weights. And this year, we're in their rec center, so big open gym. We're actually able to get all the cadets and all the juniors on the mat at the same time, which I think is great. Get the younger guys, get their hands on some of these older guys and more partners. And I think some of the people were looking around the room and being like, wow, there's a lot of talent here, and we can really go do something special. So I think that's kind of the vibe. Everyone's like, really excited with who's on the team this year. Well,
Coach, we look forward to seeing what the Cadet Pennsylvania team can do out in Fargo. And like you said, the expectations are high. And I think, like you said, there's going to be some guys that sort of jump out at us and probably will surprise us. So I know it's a long, grueling trip out there, and it's even harder when you're there as a coach. And we appreciate all you do for Pennsylvania wrestling and, helping mentor these young kids. So again, best of luck out in Fargo.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, that bus ride is going to be a grind.
Yeah, well, it's worth it, right? And when you see the Fargo Dome letters, you're like, man, this is what I spent, an entire day in a van full of kids, a bus full of kids for. So, hopefully next, when you're on your way back, there's a lot of hardware coming along back with you. So, appreciate your time, Bryan.
All right, thank you. Appreciate all the things you guys are doing for wrestling, especially in the state of Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Bryan.
Well, Eric, thanks for you being up at Clarion and having a chance to talk to all those wrestlers. And as I said before, I'm really looking forward to Fargo. Safe travels out there, Eric. And Eric, we're going to take a peek at Greco once you get out there, and we find out exactly who is all competing in Greco, and we do a little preview for that. But safe travels out to Fargo, Eric. I will be with you in spirit and mind. And here from Pennsylvania, I'll be providing you support. But thanks to all the wrestlers who took time out of their lunch, nonetheless, to speak with us on the PA Power Podcast. As always, stay tuned in to PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs. Eric's going to be providing a ton of coverage out in Fargo. I will as well from Pennsylvania. Follow us along at PA Power Wrestle on Twitter. We're going to have a lot of Twitter updates. We're going to be using all the wrestlers' handles to get out the updates. Also, find us on Facebook, friend us, like us, all that fun stuff. And until next time, Eric, in Fargo.